Good day and welcome to another session of Canvas Live. Canvas Live sessions are presented by the Canvas community members or Instructure employees or both to help Canvas users improve and enhance their teaching and learning with Canvas. So today we are continuing with our series, the Groupies, where we discuss everything there ever needs to know about groups. Today's focus is we're going to talk about assignments for groups specifically. And with me, we have Rob Ditto and Linda J. Lee. Will you guys say good morning?
Good morning.
Well, and maybe introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. So my name's Rob. I manage a team here at the Wharton School, the business school at the University of Pennsylvania, that supports the faculty's use of Canvas, and have recently really beefed up our practices around instructional design. And the person who's here with us today is somebody that I thank for truly making that professional here at the school. So thank you, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Lee. I'm an instructional design project leader on Rob's team. And one of the things that I bring to the team is an understanding of using Canvas within a classroom context. And I work directly with faculty to help them figure out how to best use Canvas and related teaching tools for their courses.
Plus, Linda's a real professor here at the university. She teaches folklore and related subjects.
That's wonderful. Well, good morning, and it's great to have you both here. My name is Birai. I'm a community manager at Instructure and have been working with Rob and his team to really bring this series to light. So I'm really happy to have both of you here this morning. So just to sort of frame our conversation today, continuing on with the topic of groups, we know that groups mean a lot of different things in Canvas. It's used throughout Canvas and some of the other products like Commons even. And so our goal here with this series is to unravel these meanings. So groups in Canvas might refer to, for example, student groups, where you have a smaller version of your course which leverages a separate space for discussion and collaboration. It may mean group work, where you're leveraging collaboration tools for working on common projects. It may mean group assignment, which in Canvas equates to submission of an assignment by a group of students. It may mean assignment groups, where you're grouping assignments in a course and for the purposes of organization and weighted grading and things like that. Or it could mean assignments for a group. In this case, we're talking about groups, but it's effectively differentiated assignments. So it's an assignment intended for a specific group of students, individual or section, which you can also consider as a group. And so we've discussed group assignments, we've discussed assignment groups, and today we're going to discuss assignment for a group. So I'm going to go over a very simple how-to. A lot of this stuff is already in the community and in the guides, but I'll give a framework of how to set something up like this, and then I'll turn it to Rob and Linda, where they will provide use cases, and they are in the field doing these activities, so they'll give us some considerations and tips on how to better design assignments for groups. So effectively, you have to create the group, then assign an assignment to a specific group, section, or individual, and then you grade those submissions. So to create a group, you would have to go into the People tab of your course, and then you should see a button up on the top that says plus group set. And so effectively, group set and group category mean the same thing in the context of Canvas. And you'd have to, once you get the pop-up to create the group, you would then define the group structure. In other words, how would you like to distribute your students across these groups? Would you like Canvas to split the students into the groups automatically? Would you like to create the groups manually, or would you prefer that the students sign up? And I think depending on how you're going to leverage these groups in your courses, whether it's in an assignment or whether it's a discussion, I think determines how you would define the group structure. In terms of how the students will see it, once you create those groups, students will only see one tab under the People tab in your navigation, assuming you keep that highlighted, obviously, or visible to the course. If a student goes into the People tab, they will see everyone and groups as the tabs on the top, and everyone is the class roster, and the groups are the available groups that people have that they can join or participate in. So they will be listed alphabetically. So perhaps that might give you some perspective in terms of naming conventions if you want to sort of organize these groups a little bit. And they will be labeled with a group set. So here you can see debate group 1, debate group 2, and then right next to it you see debate groups, which is the group set that they belong to. And if there are any self-sign-up groups, then they will have the option to switch, leave, or join the group depending on how the group is structured. Otherwise, those options may not be available for those students. So once you establish the different groups, you have to set them up first before you can do anything with them, whether you're assigning it to a group submission or you're doing collaborations or anything else, or differentiated assignments in this case. So once you have those groups established, then you go into your assignment. Let's say you create an assignment, and in the assignment settings, you have the ability to assign this particular assignment to a section or a group or an individual. And basically, you would select under assign to the group that you want to assign that assignment to, and then continue on just like you would any normal assignment. You would just attach the due date, the available from and available until if you need that, and then go ahead and save the assignment as you would normally. You might be prompted if you didn't assign this assignment to other groups or the rest of the class, you will be prompted to, Canvas will say, hey, you've only assigned this to this one group. Do you want to assign it to everybody else or other groups as well? And if you do, that's fine. If not, you can just leave it to that one group or one individual or one section. So how would the students see an assignment when they're assigned to a group? Well, technically, in this example, particularly for due dates, everyone else will see this assignment on March 9th. But Biology 101 Section 2 or Group 1 or however you're differentiating will see the due date as March 10th. And Biology Section 101, or if you have it to Group 1 or Debate Group or whatever, we'll see it at March 11th. So if you're not, if a student does not fall into a group or a section, or an individual is not included, let's say you just assign an assignment to an individual, those other students will not see it. And then how do you grade a submission? When it comes to group assignments, grade cells are grayed out for students who have not been included in that assignment. And then the assignments that are not assigned to a student are not factored into the student's overall grades. So that's important for an instructor to know as they're calculating these assignment grades. And from the student perspective, on the grades page, students can only view the assignments that are assigned to them, either individually or as part of a course section or group. So there won't be a lot of confusions. They're not going to see multiple different assignments for different, if they're not part of that section or part of that group, how in the differentiated assignments, they won't see it. They'll only see the things that are relevant to them. Before we jump into considerations, I'm going to just mention we did do a Canvas Live session called GROUPIES Group Assignments, where we actually go into the settings of an assignment if you're going to do assignment submissions as a group. And we talked a little bit about setting up your groups in there as well. And we went in a little bit more detail in some considerations on how to set up your groups there. And so I encourage you, if you're planning on continuing in this series or using groups for assignment submissions, definitely check that out. We're not going to repeat a lot of that here, but it's definitely has a lot of good tips in there as well. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rob and Linda, where they're going to give us some feedback on the considerations worth making as you're setting up group assignments for groups, differentiated assignments. Rob, Linda?
Great. Well, thanks, Mirai. And I'm here with Linda. As was just pointed out, right now we're very much in the world where to do this, to assign assignments to groups, you've got to work with a group assignment. Both that group set and the checkbox associating this particular assignment with the group set are necessary. And as we'll discuss in a little bit, there's some limitations as to how much you can edit or differentiate with that association in place. When this feature was released, differentiated group submissions, some of the folks out in the community, some of you may be on this hangout with us today, were maybe disappointed that the capability that was released was so focused on group assignments and didn't provide a way with just defining a group set as a way to have a quick, I'm going to assign this an individual assignment, something that each student would do for themselves, to a group of people. And would you agree, Linda, that that's a need that is out there?
Absolutely. There are a number of instances where a teaching team might want to assign an individually completed assignment to a group of students, whether that is something to be completed within the context of doing group work, or whether that is assigning a particular version of an assignment to one group and a different assignment to a different group.
So one of the things that we have on this slide is a link out to a feature idea. If you had that need, the best thing that you can do as a Canvas user is to contribute to the Canvas Studio, or to the feature idea page for this. It's called Assign To by Group for Individual Assignment. Great title. It's always good when the feature idea titles really say it all. And if you are interested in sort of connecting to initial reactions for when group differentiation first became possible, I also linked a comment by Kona Jones, who is a Canvas coach par excellence. If you follow her in the community, you will pretty much be sure of being on top of the pulse of how Canvas is used everywhere. And she really summarized, I thought, really nicely how we got group differentiation. That's great. That's really useful. That's what we're going to focus on for the rest of this talk. But it's not a way to quickly assign an individual assignment to a named group of people. It just doesn't do that right now.
So one of the things to bear in mind when you think about graded assignment types that can be assigned to groups of students is that this kind of group differentiation is only available for certain kinds of assignments. It's available for assignments and it's available for discussions, but it's not available for quizzes, though this is a popular idea that some people are quite interested in. And group assignments differ from group discussions, and we'll talk about that briefly a little bit later in this section.
So if your need is more around the group quizzes, you're in a world where you're going to want to differentiate to individuals, or possibly, we're not going to really get into the how-to in this session for this, but if at your institution you have the ability to define additional or arbitrary extra sections in your course, that can be a way to get towards the idea of a quiz assigned to groups. But even so, quizzes are in Canvas currently always done by individual students. There's no notion of a group submission for a quiz. So differentiating, as all types of assignments will have noticeable effects on other parts of Canvas. The assignments index page, if you show that in your course, and the details shown to you for a particular assignment, the details shown to students for a particular assignment, and then their experience of submitting it and editing it, as well as your experience of grading. So some of the things to look for when you've differentiated a group assignment is The multiple dates notations that you see on the index page, when you hover over the words multiple dates, you'll get information. So I think I was surprised when I was researching this presentation that the hover text presentation for a differentiated group assignment is nicely detailed. With individuals, it's a little more summarized. And then we don't show it in the screenshot. This particular one that I took the screenshot of has the same due date for 2 different groups in the course. But the first time only, if you have used assign to several times, just set a different due date or different due time on the same date for various groups, you'll be able to save that once. Just don't expect to edit it later. It's not clear whether this is just a design quirk or something of a bug. The feature idea that is linked here gets into what people out in the user community, institutional community are observing about the behavior of differentiated group assignments. But the takeaway for this is that if you do in fact need to vary the due date of differentiated group assignments, try to get it right the first time and help the students cope with marking it late when that wasn't what you intended, or outcomes like that.
Another thing to be aware of when you've set up differentiated group assignments is once students start to submit that work, that you'll see that the total number of submissions will align with the total number of students who have submitted work rather than the number of groups who've submitted work. So as you can see here under related items, it shows the number of submissions graded. If those 3 submissions, in this case, it's a very small number of submissions, but if your course is large, if you've got 50 or 75 students and you've got 10 or 12 groups, there will initially be a misalignment between the number of actual submissions and the number the number that's represented as submissions that you see.
Yeah, I've had that reaction, like, wait, there aren't 57 groups in this course.
Yeah. And it's because that's the number of students is what's represented there.
Students in particular, students with submissions.
Exactly.
And that's echoed in SpeedGrader as well. The sort of statistics to the left of the selector are going to be summarized by group. But what you won't get up there is any indication of who's in the groups. You may need to have your people tab open and fully expanded in another browser tab if you need to refer to who's in a group while you're grading it. You could also, as a best practice, perhaps tell students, put the names of every student in your group in your submission. And you were going to say that? Well,
I was about to say that a lot of our faculty do in fact do that. They have their students include the names of their group members on a cover sheet for a group assignment. But if you're grading, if your course is being graded with student names being hidden, that is essentially already taken care of for you through the presentation of the group names rather than student names.
And assignment comments, one of the really great features in SpeedGrader for packaging your feedback to students along with grades. Just like with any other group assignment, with a differentiated group assignment, those are going to be received by the entire group, not just the student who submitted it or a specific student. You're not really able to anymore with a properly configured differentiated group assignment to send an assignment comment that is not intended to the group. I'd say, if you have that need in this context, you probably want to send a message, some other way through the inbox, for example.
So one of the things that is, if your courses are using peer review, things get a little complicated when you're dealing with peer review for group assignments. Canvas now has the ability to do intragroup or to exclude intragroup peer review. And so what that means is if you do not have the intragroup peer review checkbox checked, then peer review assignments will not be made to group members. So a member of group A will not get assigned another member of group A to do a peer review.
And in other words, Group A won't receive Group A's own paper
exactly
to submit, but also bear in mind it's not really the group who's receiving a peer review.
Rather, it's an individual who's receiving a peer review. And this actually becomes really important when you're dealing with peer review for group assignments, because what's often the case is that faculty members are interested in all students within a group, seeing all of the feedback that's provided to that group. And currently, the way that group peer review assignments work is that's just not possible. A student sees the feedback provided by a specific peer reviewer, and no other members of the group will see that peer reviewer's comments. So there are a couple of workarounds that can be done to help mitigate this. One workaround is to have peer reviewers upload files, and group members can pretty easily share the files that they'll see that are attached as a comment within peer review to other members of the group, and that's one way of providing that peer review feedback. And another approach would be to use graded discussions with peer review, depending on whether the feedback and the assignments should be seen by everyone in the course or not. It might be a graded discussion that's assigned to only the individuals within particular groups.
And just to clarify, this is a graded discussion used for this purpose is really a separate assignment from the one that had peer review configured as an option.
Correct. And it is not a graded group discussion. That's something separate that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Awesome. And speaking of group discussions, this is another candidate for a type of assignment that you can differentiate and assign to a group. And so here you're getting, sort of an interesting intersection among what happens with differentiation and what happens with group discussions.
It's important to note that a graded group discussion is not a discussion within a group's Canvas site or Canvas section of a Canvas site. Rather, it is a graded group discussion that exists at the main course Canvas site level. Each group will get its own discussion forum for a particular topic. And unlike most group assignments that we've been talking about thus far, which are completed collectively by a group and submitted by one student on behalf of all group members, group discussions are discussions that are limited specifically to the members of the group that it is assigned to, and completed and graded individually by those group members, not by the group as a whole. So graded group discussions behave quite differently from both from regular discussions, in that they are limited to group membership, and also different from group assignments in that they are completed individually, not by group members.
So if you've created a graded discussion that's going to be differentiated to groups, as the teacher and your teaching team, you will see it within the course Canvas site, and in our screenshot, for example, where there's a bullet point debate group 1 pro. If this had been differentiated to more than one group, you'd see a bullet point, and then off to the right of that bullet point, a count of unread and total comments in that discussion topic. When the students click through from any place where they are they're finding assignments that they need to do in a course, whether it's their to-do list, the main assignment list, syllabus, calendar, whatever it is that you allow for navigation in your course. the students themselves do get taken to the topic within their group, but it's always wrapped up for the teaching team at the course level.
And this can be a little bit confusing for teaching team members if they haven't used group discussions before. They need to know, as Rob indicated earlier, that they have to go to the bullet point that's in the blue shaded area at the very top of the screen. Frequently they're looking to access that in another way. So teaching team members may require some direction for how to access these.
If they're familiar with navigating among the group subsites, it's certainly possible to switch from group to group and go to the discussions area within that group. But you still have to find that topic. So, working from the course level and, doing a bunch of right click to open in new tabs is often the fastest workflow for these graded group discussions. And when they're differentiated like this, it means that some groups, the ones that aren't assigned this discussion topic, they don't see it. They don't have this discussion topic at all. And then for those that do, let's say there was group 1 and group 2 that were assigned it, group 1 is never going to see group 2's comments, of course, and vice versa.
So groups can be used to organize coursework, and this can take a little bit of pre-planning to figure out exactly the best way to have this unfold within the context of coursework. But one of the ways in which this could be done is by using group differentiated assignments to assign different types of assignments to groups. So for example, say groups for a final project in a course have the option of completing a business plan or a research proposal or some other option. The groups who choose to work on the business plan can be assigned that assignment. The groups who plan to work on the research proposal could be assigned that assignment, and that can be a really powerful way of making sure that students and the groups that they're associated with see only the assignments that are appropriate for them.
Another design that's available with differentiated group assignments is that you're planning throughout a term, a whole panoply of assignments that some students are going to do. And this is something that we've observed happening in courses well before we had Canvas, and we're really excited when the features began to emerge to do it in Canvas and to make it easier to organize this in Canvas. We have professors who would say, okay, you're signing up for groups. Some groups are A groups, some groups are B groups, some groups are C groups, or perhaps they use colors. Some groups are red groups, some groups are green groups. And so with that names of subsets for groups, you can have situations like only blue groups are going to prepare cases 1, 2, and 3 in this course. Or this is the one that I love. Everybody needs to show up prepared to discuss a particular topic, but only the blue groups need to do the paper on that topic. So it was just really rewarding to begin to have Canvas reflect this interesting instructional design that several of our faculty use. And since differentiation was added for group assignments, this is now really straightforward to implement, and that's cool.
And so the last thing to talk about with differentiated assignments for groups is to think about ways in which you can conceive of differentiated assignments for groups with perhaps a little g instead of a capital G. If we think about groups with a big G being those groups that exist in a group set, you can make assignments be differentiated based on a number of different different options, including section differentiated assignments that may have section-specific due dates and availability dates, but you can also have individually differentiated assignments. And these are in particular for a lot of our faculty really useful when specific students have extensions for assignments or alternate availability dates for whatever purpose. Frequently this might be for an alternate availability date for an exam or some other purpose. But you can think about differentiated availability for groups of students in ways outside of the group set structure.
And if you had, getting back to how we started this discussion, if you had, sort of your heart set on using groups to manage things like extensions, accommodations, while you can't do that today with groups, don't forget that feature idea that's on the previous slide. The thinking behind this, behind differentiated assignments that are for a group of students, ones that you happen to have to type in their names individually, can still be a practice that you have.
Of course, depending on the level of differentiation, it might be more practical for smaller courses than for larger courses, but the capability definitely is there.
We do have two questions that I think I'll kind of let you sort of address. One of them is, how do you, obviously the setting up of groups can be time consuming for the instructor, especially if they're manually setting up the groups, and making sure the enrollment in the different groups are specific or strategic. Do you have options or some suggestions on those who have large enrollments and would like to create those groups? Is there a way to do that more streamlined than having an instructor manually go through and set the groups?
Our experience has been that it's possible if you have a coder who can work with the API. the groups API is very complete. We were able to write an export tool years ago. Right away, you go in the community, search for export groups, and vote for the idea that's in Product Radar around that now. Importing came later, but our colleague Abby Hendy has, was it earlier this year or late last year?
It was earlier this year.
This year did the first import tool. So we are sharing that export script now. We'll post it in the resources for this event, and when Abby's ready to share the import script, we'll do that as well. It will be awesome when, and I'm saying this in an intention envisioning way, it will be awesome when Canvas natively provides a way to import groups. The only type of group import, unfortunately, that Canvas provides is not one that is in the world of assignments at all, and that is for account level groups, which is a topic possibly for a future event in the series.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I was just saying, B-Rai, you mentioned there was another question.
Yeah, another question, and the questions are starting to come in too as well. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. But the other question came around the fact that if you hide the people tab, what are some options? Like, how do you help students sort of redirect them to the group page? What are some options there? I think we had a couple questions kind of discuss that.
So I have a multi-part answer to this. I was able to do a little testing because I'm not sure who asked the first question about this, but that got us sort of in the background while we were alternating talking behind slides. I started to mock this up. So if you hide the people tab, it will still be possible to help students sign up for groups, but you have to provide a link for them to do that. The URL for that is always the same because currently, as B-Rice slide earlier, which talked about the labeling of groups with their group category names or group set names, related to that, the URL for where students sign up for groups is always your Canvas domain /courses /your course number /groups. And students can use that. They're not going to know that URL, so you need to provide a link somewhere in your course for group sign up. Here's a potential pitfall that comes up with differentiated group assignments in doing this linking. You can create a chicken and egg. Let me back up. The most common place where we build when we're doing implementing instructional designs for our professors here, the most common place where we build a link directly to the groups tab for students is in the description of an assignment. That's become a best practice. We make a link that says sign up here. We put it in big letters in the rich editor. We then, in the course navigation, that's not exactly what it's called, but in the
content selector.
In the content selector, the bottom group of options, there's a choice there for people. If you choose people, that inserted link or re-highlight the text which you've just hyperlinked, change the end of that URL using the link icon modal dialog from to /groups. To date in Canvas, since as long as we've been using it, which for us is over 5 years now, we'll always reliably direct students to the groups page for a non-differentiated assignment. So here's the chicken and egg. A bit of a long-winded lead up to that. The chicken and egg is if you're differentiating assignments just to certain groups and they're not signed up for the group yet, they won't find that link on the assignment description. So I would say then.
So what we typically do, as Rob said, we will often put this link in an assignment. One of the questions that I'll ask faculty when we're setting up a Canvas site for them, if they're using group assignments, is when do they want their groups to be formed by? And we'll typically create a non-graded assignment that essentially prompts students to create a group, and we would put it in that assignment to make sure that students are in groups before they're expected to complete the first group differentiated assignment. Because if they're not, as Rob was explaining, if they're not in a group, they won't see a group differentiated assignment.
And then for safety factor, you can also put that link on your home page of the course, put it on another page of the course, just somewhere that isn't differentiated, that you're sure that people can find it. But it is possible.
The reason why I like directing faculty to the non-graded assignment is that that's something that will appear on students' to-do lists.
Yeah.
And that will prompt them to do it at the right time when they're expected to complete that course-related task.
By using a pair of assignments here, you're in essence assigning, one of the requirements for these assignments that you must be signed up for a group by X date. Then your group must do your submission in that group by Y date.
We do have one question, and I think this is more of a technical question. For the graded group discussions, the groups must be created first. I know in assignments, you can kind of create groups on the fly as you're developing the assignment itself. Is that the same with discussions as well? Or are those a scenario where you have to actually create the groups first and then go and assign them? I can't remember.
The groups themselves need to exist no matter what. You're not going to have success if you just make a category and create your assignment at that time and then expect the topics to be set up perfectly later when you create the groups. It can work, but it's not recommended.
Okay.
For differentiated it's especially important to have the groups completely configured before you're assigning differentiated group topics, because you won't be able to edit the assigned to of these groups later on. And that the issues around why it's a sort of you got to get it right the first time are talked about in that other feature idea that I linked in this presentation.
Okay, great, thank you. There was an interesting kind of back and forth, I think, in the chat as well that I think is worth mentioning. So as far as the considerations and some of the examples, these have been great. Some additional examples that was shared by Lorraine in the chat for K-12 application of when groups might be useful or effective. They suggested literature circles have been successful with groups, and honors level coursework in high school classes have been good as far as leveraging groups for differentiated assignments. So that I thought was great. Thank you, Lorraine, for that suggestion in this case as well. Awesome. I think if you have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the live chat. I do want to bring everybody's attention to, we will continue these groupie series. As you know, there's a lot of different ways that groups are used in Canvas. So we want to make sure we kind of cover a bit of every use case here. So we will have some more upcoming sessions on groups. So please feel free to do a search for the word groupies in Canvas community, and you'll likely find all of the sessions that are coming up. So this is a monthly series, so hopefully we'll continue to do one a month there. And then we also encourage you to get involved as well in the community, but also keep informed in Canvas Live as well. So if you go to live.canvaslms.com and follow that space, anytime we have a new session in the community, a new Canvas Live event, you'll be notified. So hopefully there will be some that you won't want to miss. And then if you are interested in kind of presenting in the Canvas Live space, like Rob and Linda have, feel free to join the Canvas Live user group. That's where we do a lot of our brainstorming, collaborations. We kind of pitch ideas back and forth, and we look for people who are interested in presenting there as well. So that's another place for you to connect. And then we have our Canvas chat rooms where you can connect with some of our community members there in real time. Rob and Linda, thank you so much for joining us this morning for this session. We look forward to connecting with you again in a future session, and we look forward to seeing everybody else back at the back here in another episode of Canvas Live. I always say episode because I feel like we do so many of them that that it's kind of like a recurring event, right? Previously on Canvas Live, exactly. Anyway, thank you so much, Rob and Linda, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, B-Rai. This is a distinct pleasure, and really great questions today. Thanks to all who attended.
And if you have further questions, please feel free to either send it to us, or we're in the community. You could find us there, or just post it on the bottom of this event page where you signed up for this session. We'll continue to answer questions there as well. And the broadcast should be available within moments after we conclude. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.